Popeyes Chicken is one of the fastest growing franchises in America. There's over 2,000 locations. And the question is, do they make any money? I'm here today at one of my 36 automotive repair shops to break their business down. And let's dive into their numbers. All right, so I'm gonna break down their financials to show you how much money they make, kind of line by line. So the first thing we gotta do is cut it up. All right, hand me the knife. Dude. Every business has 4 major categories. And for Popeyes, their biggest cost is their food cost, the actual cost for the chicken and the breading and the dough and the sauce and the paper and the drinks and everything that goes into the actual product that you're eating. For the average Popeyes location, that is gonna represent about 30%. Each one of these nuggies, about 10%, right? So 30% of every one of their sales goes to just paying for their food. Next up, we have payroll. Now, for every location, they have to employ about 25 to 35 or more employees to make the chicken. Now, a lot of these employees are part-time and work kind of variable shifts. And a lot of these fast food places get criticized by the low wages that they pay. But this is a very low margin business, as you're gonna see, that they don't make a lot of money. And so payroll has to be controlled. And in their case, payroll represents about 26% for every dollar they sell. So here goes 10%, here goes 20%, and here is another 6% So out of the gate, we have 30% to go to the cost of goods and 26%. So 56% of every dollar that comes in just to pay for the food costs and the labor, which then leaves us the rest here for everything else. So Popeyes is a franchise, which means they are part of this larger network. It means that they have to pay a percentage of their sales to the Popeyes corporate. Just like I'm a franchisee with Midas, so I own 36 of these stores, I have to pay a percentage of my sales to them to have the name and to kind of get the systems and the processes and all the things and just be part of it, right? The average location is gonna pay 13% of their sales, and that kind of goes about 5%, we can say this is 5%, goes to the royalty. So this is like the right to operate a Popeyes costs them 5%. They also are gonna have another about 4%, 4.5% that goes to the advertising that you see on TV and all the national advertising. A lot of that goes into like a big fund and it gets split up. And then the remaining portion, it's another 4% or so, is gonna go to like delivery fees and credit card fees and all the things that no matter if they're doing $1 million or $4 million or more, they still gotta pay those charges. So all in all, it's about 13% of every dollar goes off the top between the royalties, the national marketing and advertising for the rights to be a Popeyes, and all the other like transactional fees, which leaves us with the remaining. This is gonna be all of the fixed costs that it takes to operate the business. And all in all, it's gonna be about 18% of their revenue at an average location. And so we're gonna take here, that's 10%, and then what do we need? Another 8. So let's just say, there we go. My biscuit, the biscuits are pretty good. There you go. Hi. Oh no. This is all the costs that it takes to run a Popeyes, which leaves us with, our profit, some wild money, honey mustard, and a little bit of biscuit. This is what's known as our EBITDA, if you're like an accountant or like a finance bro, which stands for, this is how much money they make, earnings, before they have to pay taxes, before they have to pay interest if they have debt, before any like big expenses on renovating the building. It's called CapEx. And so for the average location, it's making 13% of profit before all those other expenses. So the average location does $2 million in revenue, which means this here, the money they make before those other expenses is about $260,000 per location. So $260,000, that's kind of the baseline of the average Popeyes. Now on the high end, there are locations that are doing $2.5 or $3 million in top line revenue. And then this number then grows, right? Because the larger your sales, the more money usually falls to the bottom line. And so if a location's doing really well, they're probably gonna make maybe 18%. And so they're probably gonna make about $450,000, $500,000 or more for one of the top performing locations in the country. And so the question is, would you buy a Popeyes that makes, let's call it $260,000 a year? there's a few things you have to consider. First is, what does it cost to build one, right? What does it cost to operate one? There's a huge variance. If you ever go by a Popeyes and it's like in a strip center, those are gonna cost a lot less, probably 500,000 to, maybe $1 million or so to build one out. A freestanding building with like a drive-through and all that stuff, they're gonna be $1 million to $3 or $4 million according to the latest reports. Now, when you look at those numbers, they're not that good. You're gonna invest, I don't know, $2 million to build out a Popeyes and to make 260,000 before all those other costs. Like, is that worth it? There's a couple interesting things here. Number one is the fast food business is like a lower risk, lower return kind of deal, where you don't make that much money on a per location basis. However, people need to eat 3 times a day, right? The volumes that they do are relatively steady. And there are franchisees that own hundreds of locations. Like, I think there's 3 franchisees that have over 100 locations each of Popeyes, and there's ones with 20 and 30, and there's ones with just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 too. But it's the kind of thing where once you can get it down and once you can operate 1 or 2 well, and then you can roll it from one location to the next, it is lower risk, there are lower returns, but still has this upside if you're able to scale it. Versus, my business here in the auto repair is kind of reverse in a lot of ways, where we are a higher risk but also a higher reward. Their business is really dependent on, do you pick good real estate? Do you people like follow a consistent process? Like, does the chicken taste, well, like within the bands of acceptable, right? But in our business, like, success or failure is 100% dependent on, do we have great people? Like, if we're able to hire great managers and technicians, and they still follow the process on a consistent basis, that is what can help us, build massive stores. But if we lose our good people, if we can't, keep them, or if they quit and do something else, then like ultimately we have no business, because it is so dependent on our people, which makes it the higher risk, right? Versus in their business, it's more dependent on real estate and process things. Would I own a Popeyes chicken? Probably not. In my world, the best thing that I can do is honestly keep doubling down on what I'm already good at. I talk to so many people, and they have this vision of like, oh, I'm gonna get into auto repair, and then I'm gonna build this portfolio. I'm gonna buy like Popeyes chicken or Burger King or this or that, and then they end up potentially getting into all these different things, and it becomes like a huge distraction, where it's much easier to grow what you've got versus trying to get into something new, and it splits your attention so many different ways. And so I think Popeyes is a pretty good product. I think it's a growing brand. They're all over the place. Not the right idea for me, but for some people who are going to be owner operators, they're going to be in the business every day, because you've got to operate it tight. I mean, we're only talking a 13% margin before all those other things. You're probably down to single digits on a cash flow basis. I would guess 7%, 8% of like actual money to you. So, less than $200,000, maybe 180, 160 a store. With that tight of margins, you got to be in it. You got to make sure you can control your costs, because there's a lot you can't control. Would you own a Popeyes chicken? Do you think the risk is worth the reward? Let me know in the comments, and let me know what your favorite chicken is. I'd love to hear it.
Just the knives have no teeth.
If you want to know how much McDonald's makes, check out this video.